life strategist, coach, you name it, I've done it, and I've done stupid.
The Bad Rooster, offering wings, hot sauces, and silly puns.
She loved her grandchildren. My son, she had like the most incredible relationship with.
Hello and welcome to Unreligiously. My name is Lauren and I grew up deep in the evangelical world. Today I talk about the secular and religious worlds, where they intersect, how religion impacts all of us today, and more. I try to make a lot of space for varying beliefs. In fact, a lot of my viewers are Christians or coming from religious backgrounds that don't align with mine, and I love that because that's exactly the kind of space that I'm trying to make with my channel here. So no matter what background you're coming from or where you've landed today, you're welcome here and I'm excited for you to share your thoughts. I don't want this to simply be me talking at you guys through a screen, so please, if you have any thoughts, drop them in a comment below. For my longtime watchers, you guys know that I am very active in comments, and I do make response videos rounding up comments, and I always take things at face value. I love hearing other viewpoints. And also for my longtime viewers, you know that we've covered some pretty heavy topics on my channel lately. And not that this story isn't heavy or doesn't deal with heavy elements to it, because it definitely does, but it does have a lot of humorous elements to it too. And I need that right now to keep me sane after some of these videos I've made. So for those of you who watch a lot of my videos, hopefully this will be a lighter break from the regularly scheduled programming for you. Today we're talking about the Bad Rooster food truck that has been accused of being connected to a cult and estranging members from their families.
To be bad to the bone. The Bad Rooster, offering wings, hot sauces, and silly puns. A group called Soulful Journey. Its leader, Soler Alare from the food truck, who is formerly known as Lin Young.
Apparently, lawsuits have been flying around, so I want to make it clear that these are accusations and allegations. I'm just sharing what's been reported online or is publicly available or in the news, but I obviously have no way of knowing the final truth.
When you talk to many, are they at all concerned about being sued?
Yes, and they have reason to be.
The family stories are concerning enough to me that I hope that this is looked deeply into, but again, everything is alleged this time. But yes, you heard that right, it's Bad Rooster. This is chicken tenders with a side of cult programming. The name cracked me up and I had to learn more because I'm from Minnesota, and so I'm just gonna be honest, I was actually looking up Minnesota-based cults. And they're shockingly little, so Bad Rooster is like one of the first things that popped up, even though there's almost nothing available about it online, and I couldn't not click on the story. So let me get you guys up to date. Bad Rooster is a popular food truck in Minnetonka, Minnesota. If you aren't familiar with Minnesota, Minnetonka is like the swanky, nice area. It's where the rich people live, and honestly, if you go to public school in the Wayzata, Minnetonka surrounding areas, people kind of judge the rich kids that go there. Sorry to throw you in, Wayzata. There's absolutely nothing wrong with living in this area. It's obviously actually like kind of a dream place to live, and to raise kids there would be a dream. Lake Minnetonka is a staple of the area, and there are lakeside restaurants, and people can ride their boats up and even park it and eat and then boat home. It's just adorable and a super cute little area. Not that any specific area is associated inherently with cults, but when I do personally think of them, I think rural, I think middle of nowhere, but Minnetonka is not the middle of nowhere, and it's basically all HOA. It just doesn't seem like the ideal place to set up a compound to me. It's a good reminder that cults do thrive where the people are, in cities, on college campuses, and in areas where normal, successful people are seeking more meaning in life. There is no one type of person or one type of area or one type of religious background that's going to be a warning sign for you getting involved in a cult. The reality is that this can impact basically anyone, and everybody that is watching should be guarded about who and about what they accept as spiritual authority or authority in general in their life. This is a good place to also just say that to anybody who does get sucked into a cult, or if you've had bad experiences with Bad Rooster, or you know people who have, you're not stupid, you're not dumb, they're not dumb. Cults seek out people who will be an asset to the cult. People who are smart, successful, dedicated, passionate. None of this is a judgment on the people who fall prey to cult tactics, because that's just the nature of how cults are designed. Bad Rooster is run by a woman named Solaire Alarai, formerly known as Lynn Young, who is in her late 60s, and she even calls herself Chief Mother Clucker. Chief Mother Clucker Solaire is locally known both for her chicken food truck and for being a dedicated spiritual leader. Followers describe her as a mentor, a healer, and as someone who channels wisdom. This wisdom seems to come from multiple places, but in particular from a spiritual entity that she calls G, like the literal letter G. But Bad Rooster isn't just a food truck who is led by someone with their own personal spiritual practice. The whole truck is allegedly connected to a spiritual group led by Solaire. The spiritual group in question is called Soulful Journey, sometimes shortened to The Journey. It's definitely not lost on me that her name is Solaire, spelled like S-O-U-L, like soul, and that the group's name is also Soulful Journey. To me, this is just already kind of an indicator of a figurehead type role, but that's just my personal opinion. She changed her name in 2009 when she was really getting going with all of this, so there are definite points against her there. Solaire shares videos online and presents herself as a spiritual teacher, a mentor, and ultimately a channeler of wisdom. Her followers describe her as someone who has full access to knowledge beyond what most of us can see, though they keep this pretty vague. From what I can gather, there are entities other than this figure that she calls G that she channels from, but she doesn't go super in depth on that.
And obviously that's not a very controversial idea at all. But her followers, her former followers, I should say, believe that that's very intentional, that she keeps it vague.
And I do want to take a pause here too, because for people who have never been in spiritual settings before or never dabbled in New Age communities, all of this can definitely, absolutely sound completely out there. And it's easy to immediately see the red flags when we set it up like this and tell the storyline and the title has the word cult in it. But for people who did come from this kind of background or this kind of conditioning, or are just even used to this type of spiritual speak, it feels normal to them. Common. It might feel like home. Channeling is a practice where an individual, in this case Solaire, claims to act as a kind of conduit for spiritual beings' higher selves, or even it can be like universal energy. It's sort of like a mix between a medium, a guru, and a counselor. For people who are actively searching for connection in their lives and meaning, and someone can give them a clear path, this can feel really powerful and like it's meant to be for these people.
I'm a life strategist, coach, you name it, I've done it, and I've done stupid.
On YouTube, she serves up a word salad of new age self-help platitudes.
Unique is a gift, and that's what I really want you to learn. It's learning to strategize with your life, figure out how you move forward, and, find a way of self-loving yourself again.
Dynamic is also where things start to get really dicey. When one person becomes the single source of divine truth, there's a risk of that relationship turning into control. And I think that risk is basically almost inherent, because I don't believe that anyone else can speak divine truth to you that you yourself would not be capable of receiving from that same higher power directly. If there is a God, he can say it to our faces, literally, and I know that comes across as sarcastic, but I really do mean that. Something I do actually appreciate in Christianity is the lack of like a living mandated figurehead, because then people aren't just making up additional rules. Obviously, pastors can and churches have their own interpretations, so like that kind of falls down pretty quickly if you look too hard. But if you're just going in and practicing healthy Christianity, you're typically not really just getting new rules added in or like words from God. You're having a personal relationship with a higher power and gaining wisdom or growth from that. And even honestly in Christian settings, as we know, it can go horribly wrong and things can end up being mishandled in egregious ways. So yeah, but think about it, honestly. If you truly believe that someone in your life had a direct line to God, or in this case, G, then their words would carry extra weight to you. You might actively seek out their advice even, or place their opinions above others, or even longer standing relationships like with a partner or a parent and child, grandchild and grandparent. We see all of those types of relationships throughout this story.
Co-owner Solaire Alleray calls herself the chief mother clucker.
We've been dealing with this for 15 years, and I don't know why we've been quiet about it.
But for two sisters, Kelly Abadi and Angela Hummelgard, there's more going on here than spicy chicken. They believe their 70-year-old mother, Mary Ring, sometimes works in the food truck, but they've rarely seen or heard from her in the last 15 years.
As far as I know, she's the oldest person who works on the food truck.
So
when someone is speaking for God or acts as your connection to God, things don't just feel like life coaching or happy suggestions anymore. They feel like rules and they function like control, even if you perceive yourself as a willing participant. And that starts to look awfully like a cult. On Solaire's own website for Soulful Journey, she has, in quotes, "What makes me an expert? Life." Great. I feel like to really understand this, we have to understand G. I was curious if G was for God, and in some ways it might be. It sounds like a catch-all for a higher consciousness, but members are pretty tight-lipped about what actually goes on, and that's pretty common of a belief, like there's your own personal higher power within you, so I don't know why they would hide that. But everyone is pretty tight-lipped about what's going on, like I said, which doesn't seem cult-like at all. I'm sure everyone isn't allowed to talk about what happens on Sunday at church.
Hello, this is G. Welcome to the inner sanctuary. This is that place where mind, ego, me does not exist.
But go deeper, former members say, and you'll discover Solaire also claims to channel spiritual beings from other dimensions, including one known as G. Faye says Solaire channeled historical figures too, like Jesus and King Solomon, and told group members they had spirit identities in a parallel dimension called the 99.
They used this realm, the 99, to build a kind of another reality. So, for instance, I was their daughter in the 99. And this just kind of became a tool for them to change your identity, take away sort of your autonomy, and claim that things are happening in the 99 and they use those to control you on Earth.
Escaped prior members say that Chief Mother Clucker Solaire's teachings are less about spiritual exploration and more about strict loyalty.
How far would you follow somebody who claimed to know a path to spiritual enlightenment?
For some people in the Twin Cities, that path leads through a 65-year-old Minnetonka woman. A lawsuit filed last month has put a spotlight on her and her business.
The group operates out of the Soulful Journey Wellness Center in Minnetonka, which also offers massage, hypnosis, and someone who can talk to animals. Former members say this is where Solaire conducts her channeling sessions, which can last late into the night. It's also the registered address of their 501c3 nonprofit, Living Faith Spiritual Community. And according to public records, the registered address for more than a dozen businesses and LLCs associated with the group or its members. There's even a video game company called Benonki Town.
It wasn't a take what you need and leave the rest type of vibe. It allegedly was, this is the truth, and if you question it, you are simply unwilling or, I don't know, a bad person. This shift in requiring obedience from members is another hallmark quality of a cult.
David Clark's been analyzing and researching cults for 40 years. At the request of the Fox 9 investigators, he reviewed material and teachings from Soulful Journey. He says Soulful Journey checks many of the boxes used to describe cult-like activity.
What concerns me when it gets cult-like, there's a totalistic takeover of the person's life. This is the number one encounter you have with families that run into trouble with this. They notice that relationships of a lifetime are being cut off. Not only that, but you have an effective communicator that knows how to make it stick to the ribs.
Of course, to outsiders, this looks insane. Most people just want to go to the food truck and get their food and drive past the weird cult building on the side of the road and not really pay too much attention to it. Most people just want to get in line with the food truck that has great reviews and a long line to order. They don't know or care about G or spiritual wisdom or the inner workings of Soulful Journey. And up to this point, honestly, you guys, as I was reading through it, I was thinking, okay, so a spiritual group has a food truck. I personally can think of hundreds of churches, probably not hundreds, but I can think of several churches that I know of off the top of my head that do have food trucks. And I know for the families who watched loved ones drift away, the connection between the food truck and the church felt a lot more ominous than to other people. And I didn't see it until I kept reading. They saw the food truck as a front for something much more controlling and not as a harmless business. People had been watching their family members join Soulful Journey and then suddenly went no contact. Grandchildren stopped getting responses from their grandparents. Children got blocked by their parents. People saw their family members working in the trucks when they couldn't get a text back, and they were no longer at their standard job or enjoying retirement.
When the Bad Rooster, announced a few weeks ago, was on hiatus after a death in the family, the sisters feared the worst.
Is this it? Is this really how we're gonna hear that she passed?
So I sent a couple messages just saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. Can you just let me know if this was my mother?
Finally, 6 days later, a message back.
We can't share any personal information. Please cease and desist. And the text message from my mother, which ultimately confirmed she was still alive because she was sending me a text message, was this kind of long rant about how I had no right to ask about her. And I was getting a taste of my own medicine.
The sisters say their mother changed 15 years ago.
They saw how members of the group of the church, the cult allegedly, were laboring in hot conditions, all in the name of enlightenment of the group, and with strong suspicions that they're probably not getting paid, allegedly. And after looking through Solaire's website, the main header saying, "My name is Solaire," and this is in direct quotes, "I believe that everyone has the ability to create the life they desire. All you have to do is figure out what is in your way." It didn't make me feel much better, because what if what is in your way, according to Solaire, is your family or the things that are keeping you healthy and stable and sane? In 2022, some former members of the group and even family members of people in the group had had enough with all of this. Things really couldn't get worse, honestly.
But the families say their only agenda is wanting their loved ones back. And after waiting more than a day,
I was talking with my dad today. It's like we literally, like, what would change, if she actually cut us off? She already has.
There's a lot of trauma, which is why we're speaking out, because there are so many people who are still in that trauma. And if we can get a message out to one of them, that's enough.
To be clear, I don't think that Solaire is a bad or rotten person to her core.
Do you believe she's a fraud, or do you believe she has some abilities?
Solaire has certain abilities. One of her greatest abilities is to tell stories. And that can get you any number of places.
They already hadn't heard from their family members in years and sometimes decades, so going public with the story resulting in a broken relationship, they already weren't speaking to each other, so people were ready to come forward.
So Kelly called out Bad Rooster on Facebook last month, saying the food truck and Solaire use the funds they earn to support a cult, asking people to think twice before supporting them.
So these people did what they could, and they bravely started going public with their stories. And one brave daughter actually took to social media and posted this, which I'll read to you, which gained some traction. In quotes, "I've decided to finally put my thoughts out there on my mother and the cult she is a part of. For those of you who knew my mother, that woman is long gone. To any one of my friends that supports or knows the popular food truck Bad Rooster truck, I think it's important to know that the Bad Rooster and its owner Solaire, aka Lin Young, uses the funds they earn to support a cult. Lynn goes by the name of Solaire and has convinced a group of people that she channels the spirit of God. Her cult charges her followers lots of money to speak to God, in quotes, and she has actively torn family apart. My mother is one of her devout followers and abandoned her children, grandchildren, brothers, friends, and husband to follow Lynn. My mother also works for the Bad Rooster. Most recently, they posted something on their page stating the Bad Rooster had unexpected death in the family. When they say family, they mean other cult members. When I simply asked them to confirm it wasn't my mother who was the deceased, they refused to answer me and sent me a message asking me to cease and desist. I'd think twice before supporting the Bad Rooster and their cult. And another young woman going by the name of Gemma shared this. Many of you might know me as Gemma, my name given to me by Solaire while I was in her cult. I used to work unpaid for Bad Rooster Food Truck to handle their bookings and social media. In fact, I was the one who sent Kelly Abedi the cease and desist Facebook message on behalf of Bad Rooster Food Truck in July of 2022. A year ago, I made a difficult decision to leave this group, the soulful journey ran by Solaire Alarai. It wasn't easy, and at the time I couldn't even identify that I was in a high control group or a cult, but I did know that something wasn't right and I needed to leave immediately. My journey to recovery has been challenging. For 10 years, I felt exhausted, demoralized, overworked, emotionally and verbally abused. I'm still recovering from this every day. Rebuilding my life and reconnecting with the world I left behind takes time. To those still inside or to those in a similar situation, know there is hope. You are not alone and there are resources that can help and so many friends and family members ready to receive you. All right, last one, but this commenter wrote this. As a person who also left this group, I can confirm that the claims are true and still barely scratch the surface. Solaire tends to hide behind a facade, but she's a completely different person behind closed doors. Manipulative and cruel. She had totalistic control of my life, and I hadn't spoken to my family for more than a decade as well. But now I'm happy to report life has gotten so much better, and I'm very close to my family again, end quote. These people made claims that the Bad Rooster food truck wasn't just a food truck. It was the cash cow helping finance what they called a cult. They describe intense manipulation, massive pressure to cut off family and outside influences, and a ton of legally documented name changes. And people being encouraged to put the group before anyone and everything. According to the critics of the Bad Rooster, the money people spent when they purchased Bad Rooster's chicken sandwiches and fries and wings didn't just go into running a small business. It, fully run by group members, supported Solaire's spiritual community. And here's where it gets even more unsettling, in my opinion, because as is the nature of a food truck, it moves to where the crowds are, the most people are. And people don't know that they're walking up to a recruitment checkpoint when they go to order. And there's not a lot of good ways to warn people because it moves. So areas don't get used to it necessarily. Places don't know to warn. It's not like an established building where people can start to leave more reviews or start to know. I've never read the reviews of a food truck before I've ordered one, just to be honest. For some people, they claim that the food truck was an entry point. Imagine that you're at a concert or a fair or a festival somewhere with food trucks and you see this funky chicken truck with a huge lineup going up to it. When it's finally your turn to order, the woman ringing you up starts chatting with you, and soon so does the cook. And they're warm, they're welcoming, they make you feel seen, and they actually want you to join them that night. Maybe they're inviting you to a meditation night or a gathering or something else. And so you go and you become friends and you learn more and you find a lot of meaning in what they're teaching. That process is exactly what researchers call a soft entry. It's a way to draw people into a community without ever using the word recruitment or setting off the red flags for cults. It would never trip off people's alarm bells. But of course, Solaire would deny all of this, and she does.
Solaire Alarai declined an interview. Instead, she hired a crisis manager who released a statement that said in part, "The personal attacks on social media are patently false and solely designed to harm Solaire Alarai and Bad Rooster because of the tremendous success and goodwill they have earned over the years."
Much easier to point the finger at Solaire and scapegoat it instead of saying, well, wait a minute, I had free will in all of this.
The crisis manager also offered up a Solaire supporter, Tom Reese, who said the people who talk to us are avoiding responsibility for their own lives.
I think it's unfortunate that there's a witch hunt. And quite frankly, I think he's part of that.
She's made it pretty clear that her stance is that all of these accusations are just lies. They're all attempts to smear her because of her great success and all the good that she's doing in the community, and they're just simply not true.
The crisis manager for Solaire Alaray claims there are no actual members of Soulful Journey and that Solaire, or G, is not channeling God, despite what her followers say and even what you may hear in the recordings. And if you listen closely to those recordings, when she says something like, "I am God," it's in the context of a much longer soliloquy and could also be interpreted as talking about God within oneself. And obviously, that's not a very controversial idea at all.
No basis in reality. And to drive this point home, in fact, she even filed a defamation lawsuit against two people who called her group a cult.
Solaire responded to the allegations with a video on Facebook.
We were attacked. We have a lawyer. Our lawyers are on it.
A couple weeks later, Bad Rooster and Solaire slapped the sisters with a lawsuit, alleging defamation and civil conspiracy, demanding a retraction.
It's not just us. There's other families.
This is not our sister. This is not Sue at all.
But the Facebook post had already gone viral, reaching Sarah and Grace in Michigan, who haven't talked to their sister Sue since she joined Soulful Journey a decade ago, changing her name to Askia Lumine.
What do you think's going on with her?
I think she's been brainwashed.
I think brainwashed. Yeah.
This is a good point to say once again that everything I'm saying here is alleged and not proven to be fact. That lawsuit did end up getting dismissed by a judge, thankfully, but your bitch is unemployed right now, and I do not want to do Minnesota court through fall and winter, so everything is alleged in this video. The judge ultimately said that calling something a cult is an opinion, and opinions are protected speech, which is great. But once again, I don't have the cash to pay to hear a judge validate that, so. Solaire has scrubbed most of the evidence off of the internet, or at least that's what one Facebook user claimed, and I definitely can't find a lot of the longer videos that I found clips of, so it does seem to me like a lot has been deleted, and the clips are basically unusable, so I've included what I could. But there are some old interview articles on niche spiritual sites that are interviewing her or directly quoting her. I'm going to splice it together. You'll have to read the full thing for context if you want 100% context, but trust me, I'm maintaining the meaning of the text, and yeah, but go ahead and read it if you guys want more context. So throughout this interview, she made these statements. I'll let you know when we're done reading. I have been channeling G since 1993, and he had been talking about unconditional love and bringing back the feeling of God. I had been teaching many students about finding the feeling of God again. I experienced unconditional love from them all. They didn't see failure in my relationship. What they saw me was the mastering of the human. Sorry, there's so many misspeak in all of these. It was in that moment that I found hope again. I believe we are what we create through our thoughts, words, feelings, and emotions. I have conversations with the masters and God daily on what will keep me moving forward in my journey. I practice walking in a meditative state, continually connecting to the divine spiritual self. My business is based around spirituality and spiritualism. I am continually immersed in the spiritual journey, but always remember I am continually learning and expanding myself however I can. I take excellent supplements to keep my body physically strong. Okay, what baffled me the most was at the end of the article where there is the bio written about her. I do think most of that is really good context, and we'll dive a little bit more into it, but the bio reads this. Lin Young, enlightened master Solaire, who holds a seat on the Council of the Masters of God Consciousness, is a nationally known published author and speaker. She brings forward information that helps guide and direct you on how to shed the conflicts of the human condition. One of Lin's unique abilities is to be the full-body channel for a being called G, whose powerful message is to awaken the ancient teachings that were hidden from us when we took on the human condition. Many people who have been in the presence of G have shared that they have experienced the feeling of God, unconditional love. End quote.
Angela attended one of the G channeling sessions in Minnetonka.
This is the place where I am God.
I'm kind of looking around like, is this am I being punked right now?
But their mother, Mary, thought Solaire and G were the real deal. Within a year, Mary was divorcing her husband and leaving her old life behind. Despite a significant divorce settlement, she declared bankruptcy a few years ago and legally changed her name this year to Sienna LaJoy. Angela last saw her mother 11 years ago when she agreed to lunch at Mall of America.
Because I almost felt like for her it was a goodbye, even though she didn't say that. I'm sorry. We never really talked to her after that. She skipped my sister's wedding. She stopped celebrating Christmas.
She has no association with anyone that was in her life for the first 55 years of her life.
No association.
None. Friends, coworkers, extended family.
Okay, it's a lot. And G was still apparently vague back then, but Master Solaire, her having a seat on the Council of the Masters of God Consciousness, I actually emailed the guy who runs this site and asked him to please inform me more, but he has not responded yet. And whatever, I feel like I'm picking the wrong hobbies if I could have been on a seat of, like, God consciousness. But anyway, the only place that I could find on the internet referencing this is this freaking bio. Literally, that's the only thing that will come back with anything. So I don't know what to do with that. I don't know if it's a fake credential. It does, at the end, direct you to a website, but I don't know if it's related to that specific role, but that domain is now for sale. Another article says this of Lynn, the same website that she prior interviewed with. The information Lynn brings forward is from the enlightened masters, capitals, and each individual's higher self, thus allowing people to get the information needed to move forward in their lives. 13 years ago, Lynn received a gift from the universe. She became a full-body channel for G, an omniscient being of divine light who has come here to reawaken the knowledge of how to walk the master path that we have hidden from ourselves for thousands and thousands of years. Lynn's transformational company, Master Paths LLC, sponsors seminars, workshops, and classes that teach people how to transcend the human matrix, shed the religious matrix, and reclaim the spiritual life that is a birthright. The foundation of this knowledge is the enlightened principles revealed by G. Lynn is an ordained minister with degrees in communications and art. Okay, Bitch, I have degrees in communications and I'm an ordained minister through like the $10 online. That means literally nothing. Later in this interview, he interviews her and she shares this. I think the first step is to forget and let go of anything you think you know about what life is. You have to take that first leap of faith to let go of everything you know. That's a scary step. Most people hold very dearly to what they think they know. Let go of what you think you know and come at your life with this desire to learn and to discover the new self. Our eyes are false to us. Our eyes feed us a false image. You can't see spirit, yet we believe it exists. There are dimensions and levels of things that are not visible to the human eye. We have to start preparing ourselves to shed that matrix, to shed that image within ourselves that says, this is the truth. Well, what is truth? Can anybody really define what truth is? Somebody asked me that a while ago, and I said, there's nothing else I can do. I am the only channel for G that I know of. He said that he will only channel through me. That's very convenient for her. His message is so important, and people need to hear that that's okay, that they're not failures, and that they're not a mistake, that they're worth every moment that they're here, that they're a gift, and that they need to find themselves and find their life. G teaches and brings to the world messages on unconditional love. I think this is very desperately needed in the world, and I'm very honored that he's asked me to do this and be part of it. G is an omniscient being of divine light that came to me in 93. It was an incredible experience. If you had asked me if I was going to be doing this, God knows how many years ago, I'd have laughed at you. G is very loving. Most people say he's very endearing. Once you meet him, he's very funny. He has a great sense of humor, and I only am hearing this through other people because I am a full-body channel, so I'm not present to it when he's there. G told me that when he becomes more important than the message that he brings, he's no more. He doesn't want to be worshipped. It's about finding God within yourself and finding that ability to be godlike in daily life. He said that he's preparing us for 2012 and beyond. He said that 2012 is really about a serious awakening for a lot of things in life. It's not scary, it's beautiful, and he said that as long as people are awake and willing to go to the next level of their own evolution, then the possibilities are endless for us as we transform our life, our planet, our journey. Okay, so that's a lot. You guys can see me getting tired. I'm putting in this part about G at the end because I also found out about it at the end, and I felt like it was like really changed everything for me. And I also want to kind of show you guys how hidden this is. It took me a while to be able to find any of this stuff. I had to go find old Facebook posts that linked to these posts. Otherwise, I would have never found them. And so how hard is it for people that are actually getting approached by these people or are getting involved with the spiritual center? They probably aren't finding some of this stuff as well. And also, on a lighter note, it does crack me up that they reference 2012 here because this was obviously written a while ago. Her name change was in 2009, and she was still named Lynn, not Solaire when this article was written, so this was a long time ago. But I'd imagine that her message, because it does all completely still track with what she's saying she teaches, has ramped up over time, not down, especially with more members and more publicity that she's gotten.
Clark says there's often a price to be paid for such a group, quite literally. Former members tell us classes cost $150 per week, G channeling sessions anywhere from $40 to $150. And there were trips, like this one to the Bahamas, that could cost members $5,000 to $6,000.
She creatively kind of categorized money in various ways, like, oh, well, these are donations to my church. This is money for educational expenses. This is money for, trips.
Then there's the overlapping businesses, LLCs, charity work, and the nonprofit. Where and how the money flows was always unclear, according to former members, who say they weren't always paid appropriately for their labor.
I was never paid a dime for anything that I did.
The financial side of it, especially with new age groups, they tend to be very lucrative. They know how to make money. They also know how to protect the money that they make.
But this brings me to a really important part of this video, which is just a quick little thing on how to identify some cult patterns, because once again, cults do not always look like what we see in documentaries, and we actually are all at risk in a way. Cult leaders aren't always out walking around wearing a sign identifying themselves as cult leaders, okay? They're not always living on a commune or waiting for God's very, 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 very near return, which only they know about and can prepare for. Sometimes there are really nice people that are running yoga studios, or they're mega church youth pastors or youth groups, and sometimes apparently they're also food trucks, I guess. Here are a few of the common traits of cults. The first one is isolation. It's really common in cults that members are encouraged to cut off or distance themselves from outside influence. Then there's the name changes or identity shifts. This is another cult tactic that helps break ties with someone's former life. New name, new me, it helps people create a brand new identity that is found in the group.
Members would legally change their name to match those identities in the 99. The Fox 9 investigators identified 15 legal name changes within the group.
This one is well known, but having a charismatic leader is another common characteristic. This would be any kind of central figurehead who says that they have special access to truth, to God, or to any higher power knowledge that you wouldn't have access to. And finally, for this video, this obviously is not all cult traits, you guys, but financial or time demands being extremely high and draining. In a cult, oftentimes the group comes first when it comes to money or labor or resources, which includes your time. You're expected to prioritize the group above even your own health, family, or maintaining your own career. Does any of that sound familiar to you guys, either in this story or in your life? Once you see the patterns, it's really hard to not see it everywhere. And unsurprisingly, when people who have left Bad Rooster's community describe their experiences, they often check multiple boxes on this list.
The Fox 9 investigators talked to a half-dozen former followers or estranged family who shared remarkably similar stories.
I have been thinking for years about going public about this, but I've been very afraid that my story alone would not be enough to convince anybody that this was real.
Faye West, who now lives in London, lived with the group for 3 years as a teenager. She left the day after she turned 18.
How would you describe this theology? Or is it a theology?
To be honest, I struggled to describe it when I was in the group. Like, it became further and further from reality. Like, in the beginning, I viewed it more as, I guess, meditation and positive thinking, like I was saying, but it very much became, like, once I was a teenager and stuff, rooted in and much more tied to the fact that Solaire was a channel and was channeling God.
For a bit there, I was willing to suspend disbelief around some of those things, but it started to get pretty weird.
Nicholas Johnson, his sister, and mother Rayla were in Soulful Journey for more than a decade.
I realized that I had to get out when I felt like I'd rather die than stay. We were told that they weren't our children, really. That in another dimension, the dimension 99, which sounds so foolish, but hey, here we are, that they were their kids.
So where does that leave us? We've got a beloved fried chicken truck, cult accusations, we've got legal drama going on, and we've got an entire community that doesn't really know what to think or where this is ending up. News on all of this has been extremely limited since the news broke, but I am hopeful that I will hopefully someday be making a part 2. A big part of what makes this so interesting to me is just how absurd it all is, because like a cult figurehead that calls themselves the, what was it, like the priest mother clucker, the baddest mother, whatever. If you heard someone in real life say my local food truck is actually a cult entry point, you'd probably think they were joking at best and really misinformed at worst. But beneath the humor, the reason that I picked this is because while it is lighter, it does touch on very real and familiar cult dynamics that can look very different cult to cult. It just can be so easy to think I'm smarter or I would figure that out, but the reality is you have to be guarded because you might not. And also, I'd love for the story to get more visibility because there are families who say that they lost loved ones and former members who say that they were pressured to cut off contact with anyone who is previously important to them. There are stories of financial strain, control, gaslighting, abuse, and these people do deserve answers and justice. Since the news broke a few years ago, there's been little said about it, like I said, and Bad Rooster is definitely still operating. I looked at their website and their calendar is definitely full and active, so if you live near Minnetonka, Minnesota, you might see it drive by. But what can we take from this and where do we go from here? The Bad Rooster story, in my opinion, is a good reminder of a few things. First of all, that cult dynamics can show up anywhere, even and especially in places that you wouldn't probably expect them to, and that survivors deserve compassion and to not be blamed. And finally, we can talk about heavy things and still find the humor in them, especially if they're branding themselves as chickens. Honestly, you guys, sometimes I do try to be very respectful and see the nuance and everything that I do videos on, but sometimes I really just can't help but like shake my head and kind of like laugh for a while. So this is that video. But at the end of the day, whether or not Bad Rooster is 100% truly a cult is not a question that I have the answer to. But what I can say is that the patterns being described by those people who have left or by family members who have loved ones in the group are consistent. And to me, they're extremely compelling.
Her life did a complete 180 again, a massive shift towards only the group.
John Gopal's sister, Katie, left a full-ride PhD program in psychology and moved to Minnesota 15 years ago to join Soulful Journey. Once incredibly close, he hasn't talked to his sister in 7 years, but messaged her on Facebook a few weeks ago. She asked him not to contact her through social media.
So you fear someone's monitoring her communications?
Absolutely, yeah. She said many things that sounded like she was brainwashed. She kept repeating the phrase, I'm following my desires. I need you to be happy for me.
This is the kind of thing I hear from families consistently over 4 decades.
And I hope that this is taken very seriously and is seriously investigated by Minnetonka Police Department. I did actually also look up her criminal record, and there doesn't really appear to be anything recent or concerning. It's just that 2009 name change and then the lawsuit later on where she was suing people for defamation that was dropped to no cost to either party. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please like this video, hit share and copy link. You don't have to send it anywhere, I promise, but it helps way more than you think that it will. And please subscribe to my channel or double check to make sure that you are subscribed if you're not already. If you want to support but you don't know what to say, you can always drop a white bird or a dove down in the comments, because that's my logo. I do respond to as many of you guys as I possibly can, and I do love seeing your comments, so please do share if you have any insights about this or want to support my channel or have any new information. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you have an amazing week, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.
Like, who's suffering more? Like, are you suffering more than me? I don't fucking think so. Like, I'm having it worse. You know, like, I'm having it like 10 times worse.
Thank you, God, for unaliving every one of my past, especially females, in Jesus' name. Amen.
There is now a preacher man going from town to town and telling pastors that we love that they are hypocrites and whitewashed tombs. He looks Middle Eastern. He's definitely not from this country, and I don't believe English is his first language. He gave a sermon to 5,000 people and fed every single one of those 5,000 people. And all that's gonna do is teach those people to want a handout, some kind of leftist agenda. And he's got 12 men that just hang around. None of them are married and no children. What kind of Christian family value is that teaching? He said, "Blessed are the poor, and that it is nearly impossible for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." That sounds like woke Marxist crap to me. And he's telling people that we need to be loving our neighbor, and not just any neighbor, all our neighbors. That's why I'm writing this new book called Toxic Neighborly Love. Not to mention he's healing people, providing free health care. Who's paying for that? Who does he think he is to say to welcome the immigrant? Has he seen the people coming across those borders? Apparently, he told one of those men that like to follow him around that he should lay down their weapons. You can come take my weapon out of my cold, dead hands. You have to save the children, because this man in a dress is calling the children unto him. They're just buying whatever he says, and suddenly they're not voting Republican anymore.